In today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 30 of my big board as of December 12th. With it still being so early in the season, these rankings are going to change around a lot. They already have changed quite a bit, and that's how I'd like to start the video, by discussing some of my biggest risers and fallers. My biggest faller at this point this season probably have to be Trevon Brazile out of Arkansas. This is really just due to him having an injury, tearing his ACL. Really tough break. You always hate to see it, but I just feel like that will probably push a little NBA teams away from him. Dariq Whitehead's another player that's fallen for me. He's also recovering from an injury, but the productivity has just been pretty discouraging. He still has time to bounce back, but I think he's got a little ways to go to get back to where he was. A player with the biggest rise for me so far this season is Filipowski out of Duke. I came into the season expected to see him just kind of as a role player. Not too great, but also still a decently impactful big to have on the court at Duke. But objectively, he's been their best player so far this season. And I think, in my opinion, he could play out of the high post a lot like how the Kings are running their offense through Sabonis. But enough about the risers and the fallers. Let's get started with the big board. At number 30, I have Mike Miles Jr. out of TCU. Mike Miles isn't a very big guard, standing at just 6'2", but he's one of the best space creators and also shot creators in the whole nation. I thought he would have been drafted either late first or early second round last year, and this season I expect to see him make another jump and work his way up somewhere into the first round. My number 29 player is James Nnaji out of FC Barcelona. Nnaji still has quite a bit to improve on to be able to contribute at the NBA level, but I think his athleticism, size, and body make him a super intriguing prospect that teams should be willing to take a chance on. I even saw one draft comparison for him as the Marvel character Thanos. My number 28 player is Emoni Bates out of Eastern Michigan. A lot of people forget that this is supposed to be his actual freshman year after he reclassified and went to Memphis a year early. His offensive game is still super impressive, and while he does have a few off-the-court issues, I think people should be still willing to give him a chance and bet on that incredibly high upside. My number 27 player is Oscar Tshiebwe out of Kentucky. Tshiebwe does have some pretty obvious shortcomings to his game, but he's one of the most dominant rebounders that I've ever seen at any level. I think teams should be willing to take a chance on him, and I think he could find a way to play a role really similar to Clint Capella. My number 26 player is Leonard Miller out of the G League Ignite. Miller's been on draft radars since last season, and it's easy to see why. He has great ball skills for a player of his size, and I think his body has the potential of really filling out and helping him compete more physically on the inside. My number 25 player is Judah Mintz out of Syracuse. Mintz is a really aggressive player both on offense and defense, and has the length to be effective doing this. He really needs to improve his shooting, as he's right around 12% from 3 at the moment, but I like his shot and expect to see this improve throughout the season. My number 24 player is Kyle Filipowski out of Duke. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I wasn't expecting too much from him, but he's really kind of blown me out of the water with how well he's played so far. I think he's got the strength and physicality to play big at the NBA level, but does still need to work a little bit on passing and shooting to be as effective as he would want to be. My number 23 player is Dereck Lively out of Duke. Lively was one that I was extremely high coming into the season, but his just shocking lack of productivity has dropped him down my board like crazy. He does still have time to climb back up, but I think it's a pretty steep climb from here. My number 22 player is Julian Phillips out of Tennessee. Standing at 6'8", he has great size for a wing and has proven the ability to be a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. He has struggled at times to create shots for himself and really just shooting off the dribble in general, but I think he could be a great 3-and-D player at the NBA level. My number 21 player is Ricky Council IV out of Arkansas. Council can kind of do it all, standing at 6'6" while playing a guard for the Razorbacks, and I think his game translates really well to the NBA. He's not a knockdown shooter, but he's good enough and does everything else to a level that can make up for that. My number 20 player is Dillon Mitchell out of Texas. Mitchell's listed at 6'7", but I've heard reports that he's closer to 6'9". This size combined with his athleticism and just fluidity moving around the court, I think he could become a really versatile defender and rebounder for any number of NBA teams. My number 19 player is Kris Murray out of Iowa. The twin brother of last year's lottery pick Keegan Murray, Kris is averaging 19 and 10 while shooting 50% from the field and almost 40% from deep. I think this level of productivity could translate really easily to a lot of NBA teams, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him taken as early as the lottery. My number 18 player is Nikola Djurisic out of Mega Basket in Serbia. Jarace is a big guard and can play wing due to his athleticism, shooting, and ball skills for a player his size. I think that I'm a little higher on him than most people, but I'm expecting for a lot of draft analysts to come around on him and start valuing him higher than he is right now. My number 17 player is Jett Howard out of Michigan. Howard's a 6'7" wing that's a tough shot taker and, more importantly, a tough shot maker. I think he's the prototypical wing for most NBA teams today and would love to see him end up in Oklahoma City, but whoever gets him, I think, will be getting a good one. My number 16 player is Terquavion Smith out of NC State. I think he's extremely similar to Bones Highland and Emmanuel Quickley, and will be asked to play a very similar role to these two players when he gets to the NBA. He could have went out last year, but was hoping to improve his draft stock this season, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to improve. My number 15 player is Kal'el Ware out of Oregon. He's a real big, lengthy, athletic big man who's able to stretch the floor a little, but I think he's most impactful playing out of the dunker spot. I didn't expect to see this level of productivity from him this early in his freshman season, but I'm sure NBA teams are loving it. My number 14 player is Dariq Whitehead out of Duke. I've mentioned him earlier in this video, but I had really high hopes for him coming into this season, but his injuries have, it looks like, made him lose a step. Hopefully this won't stick around for too long, but I think it may be a little cause for concern at the moment. My number 13 player is Gigi Jackson out of South Carolina. Jackson is still a very raw prospect, but standing around 6'9" to 6'11", he's huge for a wing and has great ball skills, and I think the ability to become a really knockdown shooter for a lot of NBA teams. I would be more than willing to bet on his upside if I was drafting. My number 12 player is Gradey out of Kansas. He's one of the best shooters in the whole country, and I think this is what most NBA teams will be looking for. His athleticism and ability to attack the rim has been really surprising so far this season, but his defense is a cause for concern and the reason that he's not inside the top 10 at the moment. My number 11 player is Cason Wallace out of Kentucky. Wallace is one of the better defensive guards that I've seen in quite a while in college basketball. He does offer a few things on offense, such as driving and finding the open man, but the offensive game does need to be improved for him to contribute at a good level in the NBA. My number 10 player is Keyonte George out of Baylor. George is obviously a shoot-first guard, but has really displayed his ability and willingness to pass and share with his teammates so far in his freshman season. I think he could potentially become a Bradley Beal type player, but I don't really expect to see him revert back to all he wants to do is shoot. My number 9 player is Anthony Black out of Arkansas. He's a real big guard with phenomenal basketball instincts. I think he's a real similar prospect to what we've seen out of Lonzo Ball or Josh Giddey, players like that. Big guards that are pass first. They can do everything decently, but the shooting is a little bit of a concern. My number 8 player is Jarace Walker out of Houston. Walker's personally one of my favorite players in this class, but I don't think he'll ever reach that level of an offensive star in the NBA. I think he's more of a connector on the offensive end with passing and screen setting, but defense is where he'll be able to make his money, being so versatile and gifted both physically and athletically. My number 7 player is Ausar Thompson from Overtime Elite. Ausar, he's obviously a fantastic athlete, as we've known for a long time with both him and his brother, but this season he's taken a leap with shooting the 3. I really hope that this is able to keep going and help him make a little more money. I would take a chance on him as early as 5 potentially, but playing with Overtime Elite, the competition is really low level. It makes it a little harder to judge just how good he is. My number 6 player is Nick Smith Jr. out of Arkansas. Smith's a really shifty guard and has fantastic touch around the rim. He's been solid as a shooter so far this year, but I'd still like to see this improve. I think his play style is similar to Allen Iverson, but I don't think he's anywhere near that level of player. My number 5 player this season is Brandon Miller out of Alabama. NBA teams just drool over this type of prospect. 6'8", lengthy, and can shoot the ball. His defense hasn't been bad this season, but I think he could show a little more effort sometimes on the defensive end, and this could really raise his ceiling even higher for a lot of NBA teams. My number 4 player is Thompson of the Overtime Elite. As I mentioned with his brother earlier, the level of competition they're playing against is not great, and that makes him harder to break down. But with you can tell with his athleticism and overall court presence, he understands the game. I'd love to see him come into a team where he's able to play a point guard instead of an off-ball role, so his shooting isn't as big as an issue. My number 3 player is Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. Whitmore is a physical beast who's really showed his ability to be able to shoot the 3 so far this year. I don't see him taking a step back on this Villanova team, as it looks to me like he's their best player this season. I would take a swing on him and wouldn't look back. My number 2 player is Scoot Henderson of the G League Ignite. The top 2 are going to be pretty obvious answers here, but Scoot had a few questions entering this season about his game, like can he be the full-time point guard, And can he improve on outside shooting? The answer to those questions have both been an emphatic yes. He's insane. I think he would go #1 in the majority of drafts in recent years, but unlucky for him, somebody else has that spot taken. My #1 player this year, everyone's gonna agree, is Victor Wembanyama out of the Metropolitans 92. I don't know what I could say that would be new to anyone watching this video, but Wembanyama is unlike anything we've ever seen. He's gigantic, he moves well, he can dribble, he can pass, he can shoot, he can block shots. I could keep going for days. Everything that you could do on a basketball court, he does it well, plus he's 7'5". Obviously, there's a lot of ball left to play before we get too deep into drafting these prospects. I hope that this video shared some insight with any of you interested in this. And if you'd like to see more, please leave a comment of anything you'd be interested in. For Plus Basketball, I'm Jace. Thanks for watching.